I had spent 3 years working myself to the bone for this moment. The smell of roasted turkey filled every corner of my two-bedroom house. The cranberry sauce simmered on the stove, and I had even attempted my first homemade pumpkin pie. This was supposed to be my first Thanksgiving as a homeowner, the first time I would host my family in a place that was truly mine. My mother had seemed excited on the phone. My older brother Brandon had agreed to come, and I honestly believed we were going to have a beautiful day together. But the moment my mother walked through that door and asked where I kept my property deeds, something in my gut twisted. I had no idea they were about to turn my gratitude into their opportunity. Before we go any further, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are curious about how a family Thanksgiving dinner turned into the biggest betrayal of my life, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next at that dinner table changed everything I thought I knew about family. Stick around, you will want to hear how this ends. Let me back up and give you the full picture of how I ended up in this situation. My name is Giles, and I am 28 years old. I work as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company, and before I bought this house, I was living paycheck to paycheck, sacrificing everything I could to save money. 3 years ago, my father passed away suddenly from a heart attack. He was only 60 years old. His death shook our entire family, but it also lit a fire under me. I realized life was short, and I needed to build something solid for myself. I needed roots. I needed a home. So I made a plan. I took on a second job doing freelance coding in the evenings and on weekends. I stopped going out with friends. I canceled my gym membership and started running outside. I ate instant noodles and rice for months at a time. I drove a beat-up sedan that was older than my college degree. Every single dollar I made went into my savings account. My coworkers thought I was crazy. My friends stopped inviting me out because I always said no. But I did not care. I had a goal, and I was going to reach it no matter what. After 3 long years of grinding, I finally had enough for a down payment. I found a small 2-bedroom house on the outskirts of town. It was not fancy. The kitchen was outdated, and the carpet needed replacing. But it had a backyard where I could plant a garden, and it had a garage where I could finally work on projects. Most importantly, it was mine. The day I signed those papers and got the keys, I sat in my empty living room and cried. I had done it. I had actually done it. Now let me tell you about my family. My mother, Patricia, is 62 years old. She has been a widow since my father died. After his passing, she moved in with my older brother, Brandon. Brandon is 33, 5 years older than me, and he has had a rough few years. He got married young, had 2 kids, and then went through a brutal divorce. His ex-wife got primary custody of the children, and Brandon was ordered to pay child support that ate up most of his income. He works in sales, but his income is unpredictable. Some months are good, and other months are terrible. After the divorce, he had no choice but to move back in with our mother. They share a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, and when Brandon has his kids on the weekends, the place is absolute chaos. Growing up, I always felt like I was second place in my mother's eyes. Brandon was the firstborn, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When I graduated at the top of my class in high school, my mother missed the ceremony because Brandon had a baseball game. When I got my first real job after college, she asked me if I could lend Brandon money for his wedding. I never said no. I always helped. I always stepped aside. That was just how it was. I told myself it did not bother me, but deep down it did. Still, I loved my family. I wanted them to be proud of me. That is why I was so excited to host Thanksgiving this year. I thought maybe, just maybe, my mother would finally see what I had accomplished. Thanksgiving morning started off strange. My mother and Brandon showed up 2 hours earlier than I expected, around 9 in the morning. I was still in my pajamas setting up the dining room table. But that was not the weird part. The weird part was that they brought someone with them. His name was Harold, and my mother introduced him as a family friend. Harold was a middle-aged man wearing a dark suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He did not look like someone coming to a Thanksgiving dinner. He looked like someone coming to a business meeting. I shook his hand and offered him coffee, trying to be polite, but I kept glancing at that briefcase. "Who brings a briefcase to Thanksgiving?" Brandon barely said hello to me. He walked past me into the living room, looked around the house like he was inspecting it, and then went out to the backyard with my mother. I could see them through the kitchen window talking in low voices. My mother kept gesturing with her hands and Brandon kept nodding. I tried to ignore it and focused on cooking, but my stomach was already starting to twist. About an hour later, my mother came back inside and found me in the kitchen, basting the turkey. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. She said, "Giles, honey, where do you keep your important documents? You know, like your deed and mortgage papers." I paused, the basting brush still in my hand. "Why do you need to know?" that I asked. She waved her hand like it was no big deal. "Oh, I just want to make sure you got a good deal on this place. I want to see if you are paying a fair interest rate." It seemed like a reasonable question, I guess, but something about the way she asked it made me uncomfortable. I told her I kept everything in a safe in my bedroom closet. She nodded and smiled again. Good, good. Just curious." Harold spent the next few hours sitting quietly in my living room, observing everything. He asked me questions about the house. How long had I owned it? Was I the sole owner? Did I have a co-signer on the mortgage? I answered honestly, because I had nothing to hide. Yes, I was the sole owner. No, I did not have a co-signer. I had qualified for the loan on my own. Harold nodded at each answer and wrote notes in a small notebook. When I asked him what he did for a living, he gave me a vague answer. "I help families with property matters," he said. "Transitions, paperwork, that sort of thing." I did not press further, but alarm bells were starting to go off in my head. Brandon and my mother kept disappearing into the backyard for private conversations. At one point, I went outside to ask if they wanted anything to drink, and I overheard Brandon say, "I need this, Mom. My kids need stability." My mother replied, "I know, sweetheart. We will make this work today." I froze. Make what work? I pretended I had not heard anything, and walked back inside, but my hands were shaking. Something was very, very wrong. By 4 in the afternoon, the turkey was ready. I had set the table with my best dishes, which were not much, but I had tried. There was stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean, casserole, cranberry sauce, and a pumpkin pie cooling on the counter. I called everyone to the table, hoping that once we sat down and ate together, whatever weirdness had been happening would disappear. But it did not. We sat down and I said a quick grace, thanking God for the food and for family. I looked up expecting smiles, but my mother and Brandon were both staring at their plates. Harold was checking his watch. Nobody complimented the food. Nobody said it looked good or smelled amazing. The silence was suffocating. I tried to fill it with small talk. I told them about a new project at work, about my plans to build a garden bed in the spring, about how I was thinking of adopting a dog. Brandon barely looked at me. My mother nodded absently. Harold did not even pretend to be interested. Finally, Brandon set down his fork and said, "Giles, we need to talk about something important." My heart sank. I knew it. I knew something was coming. My mother put her fork down too and folded her hands on the table. She looked at me with that expression she used to give me when I was a kid and had done something wrong. "Giles, honey," she began, "you know your brother has been going through a really hard time." I nodded slowly. Of course I knew. Everyone knew. She continued, "Brandon is struggling financially, and those 2 babies of his need a proper home. They deserve stability." I did not say anything. I just waited. My mother took a deep breath. "We were thinking," she said, "that maybe you could help him out." I frowned. "Help him out?" how I asked. She glanced at Brandon, and he took over. "Giles, I need a house," he said bluntly. "My kids need a yard. They need their own rooms. I cannot keep living in that tiny apartment with Mom." I still did not understand. "Okay," I said carefully. "So you are looking for a place?" Brandon shook his head. "No. I am asking you to transfer ownership of this house to me." The room went completely silent. I stared at him, waiting for him to say he was joking. He did not. My mother jumped in quickly. "It is not giving it away, sweetheart. Brandon will take over the mortgage payments. You can even stay here if you want. We just need to put the house in his name so he can establish residency and stability for custody reasons." I could not believe what I was hearing. "You want me to give him my house?" I said slowly. My mother shook her head. "Not give, transfer, temporarily. Just until Brandon gets back on his feet." Brandon leaned forward. "I will pay the mortgage, Giles. You would not lose any money." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "This is my house," I said, my voice rising. "I worked 3 years to buy this place. I saved every single dollar. I ate garbage food and worked 2 jobs. And you want me to just hand it over?" My mother's face hardened. "Do not be dramatic. We are family. Family helps each other." I looked at her in disbelief. "Family? You want to talk about family? Where were you when I was working myself to death? Did you ever ask me how I was doing? Did you ever care?" That is when Harold opened his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of papers and slid them across the table toward me. "I have prepared a quit-claim deed," he said, in a calm, professional voice. "All you need to do is sign here, and the transfer will be complete." I stared at the papers. Brandon's name was already filled in. The date was already written. Everything was ready. They had planned this. They had come to my house on Thanksgiving with a lawyer and paperwork planning to take my house from me. I looked up at my mother. "You hired him?" I asked. She did not answer. I turned to Harold. "You are a lawyer." He corrected me. "I am a paralegal." "Your mother contacted me last week to facilitate this transaction." Last week. They had been planning this for at least a week, maybe longer. My mother finally spoke. "Giles, please. Just sign the papers. Brandon is your brother. He needs this more than you do." I could not breathe. My chest felt tight. "He needs this more than I do," I repeated. "I am the one who worked for it. I am the one who sacrificed everything. And you think he needs it more?" Brandon stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Stop being so selfish," he snapped. "You are single. You do not have kids. You can buy another house later. I need this now." That was it. That was the moment I realized they did not see me as a person. They saw me as a tool, a resource, something they could use to fix Brandon's problems. My mother added, "Your father always said we had to take care of Brandon first. He is the oldest. He has responsibilities." I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of them. "Dad also said I should work hard and build my own life," I said quietly. "And that is exactly what I did." "And now you want to take it away." Harold cleared his throat. "The sooner you sign, the easier this will be for everyone." That was the final straw. I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Get out of my house," I said. My mother gasped. What I repeated myself louder this time. "Get out of my house. All of you. Right now." Brandon's face turned red. "You cannot be serious." I walked to the front door and opened it wide. "I am completely serious. This is my house, and you have no right to be here." Harold quickly started packing up his papers. He could sense that things were about to get ugly, and he clearly did not want to be in the middle of it. He mumbled something about calling him if I changed my mind, and hurried out the door. But my mother and Brandon did not move. My mother's face crumpled. "Giles, please, do not do this." I shook my head. "Do not do what, Mom? Protect what is mine. Stand up for myself. You are the one doing this. You came into my home and tried to manipulate me into giving away the one thing I have worked my entire adult life for." She tried to soften her voice. "Honey, I only want what is best for the family." I laughed bitterly. "No, you only want what is best for Brandon. You always have." I turned to face her fully, and everything I had been holding in for years came pouring out. Do you know what it was like growing up as your son? I asked. Do you know how many times I came in second place? How many times you missed my events because Brandon had something more important? How many times I helped him out and never got a thank you? She looked down. That is not fair, she whispered. It is completely fair, I shot back. You have spent my whole life making me feel like I was less important than him, and I accepted it. I told myself it did not matter. But this is too much. You do not get to take my house. Brandon stepped toward me, his fists clenched. You think you are better than me, he snarled. I held my ground. No, Brandon. I think I deserve what I worked for. He got close to my face. I have kids to take care of. What do you have? Nothing. I did not back down. You are right. I do not have kids. But I have something you clearly never learned. Responsibility. You made your choices. You got married young. You had kids before you were ready. You bought that expensive truck instead of saving money. Those were your choices, not mine. And I should not have to pay for your mistakes. He looked like he wanted to hit me. For a moment I thought he might, but my mother stepped between us. Stop it, both of you, she said, her voice shaking. I looked at her. No, Mom. Let him hear this. Brandon, you are 33 years old. It is time you figured out your own life. Stop expecting everyone else to fix your problems. Stop playing the victim. You made bad decisions, and now you have to live with them. I am not going to sacrifice everything I worked for just because you cannot get your life together. The silence that followed was deafening. Brandon's face was purple with rage. He shoved past me toward the door. You are going to regret this, he hissed. I did not respond. My mother stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. I cannot believe you would turn your back on your own family, she said. I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it down. You turned your back on me first, I replied. The moment you walked in here with that paralegal and those papers, you stopped being my mother. You became a stranger, trying to steal from me. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. Finally, she turned and walked out. Brandon was already at the car, slamming the door. My mother got in the passenger seat and they drove away. I stood in the doorway watching their car disappear down the street. Then I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. The house was completely silent. The food was still on the table untouched. I had spent hours, cooking hours, preparing, and it had all been for nothing. I walked back to the dining room and looked at the feast I had made. Turkey, stuffing, potatoes, pie. All of it still sitting there getting cold. I sat down in my chair and put my head in my hands. For a moment I let myself feel the weight of what had just happened. My family had tried to take my house. My own mother had plotted against me. My brother had called me selfish for wanting to keep what I had earned. It hurt. It hurt more than I ever thought it could. But underneath the hurt there was something else. Relief. I had stood up for myself. I had said no. I had drawn a line and I had not let them cross it. And that felt good. The next morning I called a real estate attorney. I explained what had happened, and I asked what I could do to protect myself. The lawyer reassured me. As long as you did not sign anything, your house is completely safe, he said. No one can force you to transfer property. What they attempted could actually be considered coercion, which is illegal. You did the right thing by refusing. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. I also asked if there was anything I should do to protect myself going forward. He suggested I change my locks just in case my mother had a spare key I did not know about. He also recommended I document everything, including the paralegal's name and the papers they had brought. I followed his advice immediately. I changed the locks that afternoon. I blocked my mother's phone number, and Brandon's number at least, temporarily. I needed space. I needed time to process everything. Over the next few days, Brandon sent me several threatening text messages. He said I was a terrible brother. He said I was selfish and heartless. He even said he was going to take legal action, though we both knew he had no case. I saved every single message, just in case. My mother tried calling from different numbers, but I did not answer. I was not ready to talk to her. I called two of my closest friends and told them what had happened. Both of them were furious on my behalf. "You did the right thing, man," one of them said. "That is insane. They cannot just take your house." The other agreed. "Family or not, that is messed up. You worked hard for that place. Do not let them guilt you." Their support meant everything to me. It reminded me that I was not crazy. I was not selfish. I had simply stood up for myself. The weeks following that Thanksgiving were some of the hardest of my life. I felt guilty. I felt angry. I felt sad. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Should I have been calmer? Should I have tried harder to explain my side? But every time I thought about it, I came back to the same conclusion. There was no other way. They had come to my house with a plan to take it from me. They had not asked. They had not discussed. They had demanded. And when I refused, they had tried to manipulate me with guilt and family obligation. I spent Thanksgiving leftovers eating turkey sandwiches alone for days. Every time I opened the fridge and saw that food, I thought about what that day was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a celebration. It was supposed to be me showing my family what I had accomplished, proving that I could make it on my own. Instead, it had turned into a nightmare. But slowly, as the days passed, something shifted inside me. The guilt started to fade, and the relief grew stronger. I started to see my house differently. It was not just a piece of property. It was a symbol of my independence. It was proof that I did not need anyone's approval or permission to build a life for myself. I started inviting friends over. I hosted a small get-together one weekend. Just a few people, some pizza, and a movie. It felt good to fill the house with laughter and warmth. I realized that family is not just about blood. It is about the people who support you, who respect you, who celebrate your victories, instead of trying to take them away. My friends were my family now, and that was okay. I also started therapy. I knew I needed help processing everything that had happened. My therapist helped me understand that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary. She helped me see that I had spent my whole life trying to earn my mother's love and approval, and that no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough. Brandon would always come first in her eyes, and that was not my fault. It was her choice. Christmas came and I did not go home. I did not call my mother. I did not send gifts. Instead, I hosted a small dinner party for friends who also did not have family nearby. We cooked together, exchanged inexpensive gifts, and played board games late into the night. It was one of the best Christmases I had ever had. There was no tension, no guilt, no feeling like I was not good enough. Just good food, good company, and good memories. I realized that this was what the holidays were supposed to feel like. Joyful, peaceful, free. As winter turned into spring, I started working on my house. I repainted the living room. I tore up the old carpet and installed new flooring. I built that garden bed I had talked about and planted tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. Every improvement I made felt like an act of defiance. This was my house. I had fought for it, and I was going to make it exactly what I wanted it to be. I was not living for anyone's approval anymore. I was living for myself. About 6 months after that terrible Thanksgiving, I received an email from my mother. The subject line said, "I am sorry." I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. In the email, she apologized. She said she had been wrong. She admitted that she had let her favoritism toward Brandon cloud her judgment. She said she had been so focused on trying to fix his problems that she had not stopped to think about how her actions would hurt me. She said she understood if I did not want to forgive her, but she hoped that one day we could talk. I read the email 3 times. Part of me wanted to delete it and never respond. But another part of me, the part that still loved my mother despite everything, wanted to give her a chance. I wrote back. I told her that I appreciated the apology, but I was not ready to forgive her yet. I said that forgiveness would take time and it would require her to show me through actions, not just words, that she had really changed. I told her that I needed to see her treat me with the same respect and priority that she gave Brandon. I also told her that I would never under any circumstances give up my house. And if she could not accept that, then we had nothing more to discuss. Her response was short. She said she understood, and she would respect my boundaries. She said she loved me, and would wait as long as it took. As for Brandon, I never heard from him again. He stopped sending angry messages. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had moved to a different state for a new job opportunity. I hoped for his sake and for his kids' sake that he figured things out, but I did not reach out. Some bridges once burned are not meant to be rebuilt, and I was okay with that. I did not hate him. I just did not want him in my life anymore. That summer, I sat on my back porch one evening, watching the sun set over my garden. The tomatoes were starting to ripen. The herbs smelled amazing. I had a cold beer in my hand and my favorite playlist on low volume. I thought about everything that had happened over the past year. The betrayal, the pain, the anger, the healing. And I realized something important. I had spent so much of my life trying to be enough for other people, trying to prove myself, trying to earn love that should have been freely given, but I did not need to do that anymore. I was enough just as I was. I had worked hard. I had built something real, and I had stood up for myself when it mattered most. All I wanted was a peaceful Thanksgiving. What I got instead was a painful lesson about family boundaries and self-respect. But I also got something else. I got my freedom. I got the courage to put myself first. I got the strength to walk away from people who did not value me. And I got a home, a real home that was mine, and mine alone. No one could take that from me. Not my mother, not my brother, not anyone. And for that I was truly thankful. So let me ask you, have you ever had to stand up to your own family to protect something you worked hard for? Have you ever been in a situation where the people who were supposed to support you tried to take advantage of you instead? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are not with strangers, but with the people we love the most. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have the courage to protect what is yours and the wisdom to know when to walk away. Take care of yourselves, and remember, you are worth fighting for.